All right, hello, my name is Luke Duell, and this is my service tracking tool. The naming for it was a little difficult, as software developers may say, naming is not the easiest. All right. So the project scope was to kind of provide a client-based software that stores customer data and can be used to track that data and that service through the process. The whole point is to kind of track it and to dump it into a database. That way it can be used by other features. Maybe I call it a Burger King screen. There's a better name for it, but display for employees so they can kind of see what all is going on, what they need to do, maybe a to-do list and stuff like that. But essentially to store it in there so it can be easily accessible. So what the project does, so it provides a user interface for three different types of clients. That is an admin, a user or employees, and customers. And on all three levels, they can do not the same thing, but they can track, sort, search, add. Uh, Customers cannot remove, um, but and prioritizing. So there's different use cases for different types of levels of users, which I will go over here in a little bit. But it's all used to improve the efficiency of the services that are offered by a given company. The whole point of it is to provide a provide software for a company to track their services better. So as far as plan, mostly, this is kind of a breakdown of what I have. As you can see, what I did throughout the process. What you can't see in this entire figure is these little things right here. So database design, user interface, authentication, local testing, and debugging. Now that is not in order, but I did start off with the database design. That is always a good thing to start off with first because you need to know how big and how much data you're going to store. Now, with that, I then moved to kind of building more so the back end. This does have a server in it within the project, and that handles the talking to authentication. I did do that more towards the middle, but that is definitely something that you should do more towards the front. And then user interface, that is definitely something that I did in the beginning. I like to kind of see what I need and then see where I can go from there. But back end is definitely something that you want to start early and something that you definitely want to expand on because that is always going to change no matter what you do to the user interface. So for this in particular, the last thing that I kind of did, I was doing debugging a lot throughout the process, but the last thing that I did was local testing. Local testing was where I built the environment to which the program can run, and that is on localhost, so I was able to submit the project. So plans, design, and tasks, this is the second part of it. So these are the diagrams that I have. These are not the best diagrams in the world, but I have my ERD diagram. That just goes through kind of what the database is going to see, what it's kind of going to store. I didn't end up using all of this stuff, and my face is covering this. I'm going to throw myself up here. But I didn't end up using all this naming. I was able to thankfully find a service that was able to store all of my user information, so that involved authentication. It provides a much safer service, and I was able to do that. It was Firebase Auth, which is awesome. It's an awesome service. But as far as customer ID and customer name, first name, last name, and all of that information that was stored in the database. There was additional information like field name for when the admin is to go in and distinguish what service they are actually using. So if let's say they're a powder coating company, which is the main reason why I kind of built this, they may put in color, or they could put in blast or primer, something like that they need to track. And if they don't on a given day, let's say they remove their blast booth, then they would remove that field from the database, if that makes sense. Use case diagram, this goes over the three levels that I have for users. You've got the customer, employee, and admin. Admin has access to literally everything. Um, Employee has limited access. They cannot get to the administration page that the admin can. Now, customer, is very limited. They can add an entry and they can view the total table as far as what all is in that that is being shown on that screen. So the list screen that shows all of the tracked services. So those are the three levels, and then the activity diagram. It's kind of an activity. It covers mostly what a user would go through. So I've got on the left, a customer, what a customer would go through, and stuff like that, and admin, what they would go through, what they might do, different levels and different ways to go through the program. These kind of changed as I was building, but I stayed mostly on track as far as what the end goal was for everything, is to provide a tracking software for a given company. Put myself down back here. Okay, so the limitations of the project, this is kind of short and sweet. Definitely time. Time was a huge limitation. If I had more time to build this project, it obviously could have looked a lot better. I am no front-end developer, but if I had a little bit more time, I could have made it look pretty, stuff like that. But I also could have added some features like, allowing the user to upload larger files or stuff like that. Obviously that was limited with a given amount of time. A database size is another one too. If the database was a little bit bigger, I could have stored objects like that were a lot bigger. So those were the limitations. Time is the biggest one. Time was definitely the biggest one, especially since this was a solo project, which I think I cover next. Excuse me, I did not. Must have skipped over that. Yeah, team members. I guess I skipped over that. I did everything, as you may already know. But so moving on, future work on the project, there's a lot that can be done with this. A lot. Improving the user experience, improving the interface, improving the type of data that can be stored. Right now it only stores strings. So if the user wanted the drop down, that could be very effective. If they want to store, turning myself down, if they want to store, checkbox or a drop down, if they want that to be easily accessible, that could be very effective. Especially if it's a yes or no option instead of typing out yes. It can definitely improve the user experience. And then, that kind of overall capabilities, that kind of encompasses everything. There's always something you can do. If you're working on a project, there's always additions you can add onto it. There's no really limitations. You can't say that you're done with the project. You can say that you covered the scope of what the project needs to do, but there's really no limitation as far as whether or not you're finished working on that given project. Okay, I'll do a quick demonstration. I'll be pretty quick because I know this software pretty dang well, or I know this service pretty well. So here's your basic login screen. This could be obviously improved. So I'll use my login that I already have. These are a lot of different tests that I used. There's an option to sort. You can sort them by date. You can sort them alphabetically, reverse alphabetically. That didn't do what I wanted to do. You can also search different things. And then this is a huge one, administration screen. So these are the fields that you can add. And let me go back. Let me cover this first. So if you add an entry, you've got your data arrived in name. Those are the two fields that you have right now. So when you add an entry, you obviously fill out your date, the 20th, presenting, and then you add your entry. And there it is. So this is sorted by date, new to old right now, so it's obviously going to be on top. If you go to admin, you can add a field here. So let's say, color. Cool, I want to add that. Save the field. Awesome, tells me I saved it. Now here's a cool one too. This was where the server came into effect. You have different users at different levels. So let's say a@gmail.com is a customer, so they're going to be very limited. b@gmail.com is a user, so they're going to be able to do everything but admin privileges. And you can add a user right here if you want to. Makes it easy. There's always the option in the login screen to add a user. That's pretty simple. But yeah, if you go back here, you'll notice, oh, now we have a color field. Cool. So now we can add color if we want, save the changes, and now it shows up here. The cool part of this too is when you're an admin, you want to remove it, you just remove it, save it, go back, and it'll actually clear that information from the database. So when you add this back in here, that information is going to be gone. So you're not just looking at random data. So that information gets cleared. That is awesome. There's the deleting feature too. I'm kind of going pretty quick through this. But yeah, that encompasses a lot. It's a very fun project. This kind of piggybacks off of another project that I already did, but way more complex, a lot more complex. But yeah, I'll kind of show this too. This part's kind of cool. I'll show what it's like to be a customer when you log in here. Very limited. Can't click on any of these. You can't edit them. You can add one, but you can't edit. That is a huge feature. That is not a huge feature, but that is definitely something that's really important, especially if you don't want your customer to go in here and continually update the date at which they turned it in. You don't want that, because then they're going to show up at the top every single time. You're going to be like, oh man, or push it back a while, and then you're like, oh man, this has been here for a while. We need to do this right now. Stuff like that. But nonetheless, that is all that I have. So thank you.